Hey, welcome back. Thought I'd do a big race report on my year's biggest ultra so far. So this is for the Arc 100, which is a 100-mile foot race from Coverack to Porthtown, and it's a really famous race which we're looking at. It's been taken over by UTMB now, so the amount of runners probably went up by about 30 or 40% from the year before. And it's a really famous race with, let me see, it's probably about 15,000 feet of climb. And yeah, it's about 102 miles in total. And it's really technical over the southwest coastal path. So my previous video was the Winter 55, which was a tune-up race for this one, and that was about 6 weeks before. So yeah, this all happens in the sort of depths of winter, the Arc 100, which is late January sort of time of this year. So weather-wise can be really tough, and so it's one of those races that it takes an amazing amount of planning and preparation and training to adapt to the problems that happen along the route and all that sort of thing. So with regards to training, you really have to ideally train specifically for that race, which is technical, it's got high elevation in many points, and it's obviously an incredibly long distance as well, so your weekly volume and training needs to be high enough to be able to support that sort of onslaught. And then you've got sort of traveling through the night, because with this one it starts, I think it was midday, so you've got about 4.5 hours before it gets dark, and then it goes into around 13 or 14 hours of darkness through the night. And then into the next day. So I guess we should start the training leading in. So yeah, race specific, I was training local trails over the Ashdown Forest, because that's what we've got around here, which is hilly, but it's nothing like that sort of terrain. So I was trying to get as much elevation in as possible, as much trails and as technical as possible, just to train the stability of your sort of running and your feet and strength and everything. There was lots of hill reps, trying to do sessions where you maybe get over 1 kilometre's worth of elevation gain in a session. And also with the previous problems I've had with navigation, I was basically trying to practice the navigation of my watch as much as possible. Now, what I found was really useful was going onto Strava, depending on how much time you've got, pick a distance and then just pick a random route on Strava near where you live, and then just go and do that route following your watch, so you're basically practicing your navigation with the watch. And it's such a great feature on Strava and within the Garmin Connect as well, on the routes, to be able to be guided by your watch. And if you can do that and train it through the night as well in training, you're really preparing yourself well for a race like the Arc, which has got so many challenges to it. So yeah, Strava, random routes, perfect. I thought it was really good way of doing it, and because it also through winter, it was snowing a lot, so no matter what the weather's like, you have to get out there. You know, even if it's you put your waterproof socks on with your liner underneath, your Injinji liners and your sealskin socks, and train in the kit loaded up with your pack and all that sort of stuff, so you'll get used to that extra weight and where things are positioned on the pack, so you can get used to the most efficient way of accessing different bits of kit on the training runs. So night running was good, with head torches and all that sort of stuff. So the tune-up race, the Winter 55, was great because it was savage conditions with Storm Dara, but that's another video. And yeah, so and then the weekly volume, I wanted to make sure I had enough weekly volume as well as the elevation as well, and the technicality of those training runs. And then it led into the taper. So in the new year as well, over Christmas and New Year, we went to Thailand. So I wanted to get some elevation in there. So I went on Strava, hunted out a few key hills. And there was one which I found near Krabi, which is Ao Nang Hill, which was good. It's like 100 meters from top to bottom. So I'd try and do that, say, 10 times to get a kilometer's worth of vert gain. I also had like a random cross country run, which was obviously very short, but just to step in with the team and stuff. And then I did a marathon, just training run, a trail marathon locally, and then a 50k training run, and half of it was through the night, and then it went through into the rest of it was in daylight as it got light in the morning. And the 50k was a random route that I hadn't done before, so I was practicing the navigation, I was practicing the nighttime running, and also the long distance running and time on feet. And then it went into the taper period. So yeah, the ARC hundreds. It was a real test because I DNF'd in Lakeland, and what I learned from that, well, there was lots of things I learned from that, was one, obviously the planning is key, but when you execute a race like that, sometimes you need to leave your ego at the door and respect the course and the elevation and not trash your legs too early. And everything has to go right for that sort of race to sort of succeed in. So from that, that sort of preparation, I was going to take this one easier, especially at the start and in through the midsection, because I knew how technical some parts of it were, especially from like Pendine Lighthouse through Zena and to St Ives. It's a really famous half marathon distance of crazy technical running, and it's just like rock scrambling. Because I did the ARC 50 the year before, came fourth on that, which I was just missed out on podium, and so I knew that section during the daylight, but this time I was doing that crazy technical section during the night for the 100, so it was a massive change from the 50. So yeah, the actual trip, we went out with there was two other people of us who were doing the 100, Johanna and Brandon, and then there was another friend who was doing the 25, and then we had one guy who was helping crew, which was really, really useful to meet at certain points with sort of liquid changeovers and stuff like that. So yeah, it was down on the Cornish coast. We drove down there a few days before, ended up by staying at the usual cottages, which was great, which was quite near to the start line. But being UTMB now, it was so busy and a lot of those roads got massively congested. It's quite expensive, but there were some advantages with them taking over as well, because the whole course was had the sort of Tibet markers and was labelled amazingly, which we didn't have as much before. So that really helped through the night sections. So kit, shoes, which is obviously the big one. I went for comfort this time and grip, because you're dealing with mixed terrain. It's been quite wet in a lot of sections. So I wore them a Fatty Speed 4s, which have got 5mm lugs with the Vibram Mega Grip. So you've got a really trusty rubber compound, which is kind of best in the industry really, with the cutouts and stuff. So these have got great grip, and they're incredibly comfortable, and they're wide enough for me to wear waterproof socks in as well as the liners. So I started out with waterproof socks on, which are the sealskins one, with Injinji liners, because I just didn't want to trash my feet and get sort of macerations, because you were going to be running through all sorts of water and stuff like that. So in a way, in some ways I think that worked, but your feet couldn't breathe as much, so you're going to get wet feet anyway from the sweat and everything. But I did that until mile, I think it was the drop bag, which was mile 55, I think it was. But they were a great choice of shoes. They're about 300 grams each in a size UK 9, but it was about comfort, it was about traction and grip on the hardest of terrain. So it wasn't about the sort of speed or weight aspect. So it might not be the lightest shoe, but it was definitely the right shoe, and I was very glad to have chosen those ones instead of things like the Agravic Speed Ultras and things like that. So yeah, kit, we had the preparation in terms of the mandatory kit was, one, it was really expensive because there was so many things on there which I didn't have, like numerous base layers of different types of weight and material, like Permaloft, or is it Primaloft? Yeah, and so just an example, like as an insulated gilet, we needed one of those. So each time you buy something like that, you want to go for the lightest possible one, and things like an OMM one. So you're looking at about 80 or 90 quid per item. So you might be spending like an extra £300 or £400 on extra mandatory kit outside of the cost of the entry and all the other stuff. So it starts getting really expensive, but yes, it's an investment, and yes, it's lightweight. But if you're going to be carrying that, one, it's going to be extra volume in your pack. So I had to buy a bigger pack, which is the Salomon Advanced Skin 12. So that's a 12 litre pack now. And so there was a lot of extra mandatory kit, and including the winter kit, like the really cold weather kit, which they said, we'll let you know, say a week before, I think it was, if you need it or not. But you had to buy that. So there was all this extra kit you had to buy, and even without the winter kit, I could only just manage to cram that into the 12 litre pack. But it makes so much difference to buy the lightest, most lightweight stuff. Just as an example, like you needed battery backup, you needed to carry your phone. So I had my iPhone Mini 13, which was on focus mode, and there was this app, Live Trail app they were talking about, which luckily I didn't need to have running. But you've got to think about battery life and recharging it on the go with the sort of the way in which the leads are going to connect into the phone without breaking ports. And so, I mean, even this battery pack up here, this is like the lightest one I could find, which is carbon fibre night court one, 6,000 milliamp hours. And so got one of those, and sometimes they're advised to have like a hand torch as well with like a really long beam. So I got a Phoenix one of those, which is the lightest one I could find with battery backup. Petzl Ico Core head torch with battery backup as well. Which was fantastic, and in the end I didn't actually use the hand torch. I just used that with the spare battery that I changed at the main drop bag location, because I would have been running for about 8 or 9 hours or something by then, in the darkness side of things. As always, I got the waterproof paper with all the drop bag locations and the drop bag location and the aid stations, and colour coded to where the crew was going to join. The crew, they couldn't join at many places at all, really. So we aimed at Port 11, which is 24.6 miles. And so I'd had to run that far with like a litre and a bit's worth of fluids, and then did a handover swap there. And Godrivi, which was 88.9, which is almost at the end there. So it's a bit of a random place. But it was really helpful to have crew. The main drop bag was at Land's End, which is 54.9 miles, and if you can get to Land's End, and that's a big milestone when you can just totally refresh. Now that's where I changed my shoes and did a sock change, took off the waterproof socks because they weren't breathing enough, and then cleaned my feet up, had some pizza, some tea, put some new socks on, changed my base layer top for a warmer one because it's going right through the night. And it's a good opportunity to just stop and reset and just get some fuel in and just rest your legs, because it can make so much difference. Now that was one of the main things about this race, was I was taking it a lot easier at the aid stations, and I wasn't in such a rush, and I was just using that time to just have a little bit of a reset and a recharge. Now, what else? We'll go through the kit, but there's, I had the Fuji Trail half tights with the big storage at the front. I did find that the Mafatis, because it's like a mixed terrain course, I had a pretty fresh pair at the start and a new pair in the bag at the drop bag location, and yeah, they were the right shoe, but I ended up by wearing out some of the lugs on the lateral side on the heel, because your gait's kind of going a bit, and it's quite, these are like new, they were like new shoes, the other ones, and they both got worn out in the same place a little bit, so I was a bit gutted about that, but they were definitely the right shoe because you needed that grip and comfort. So what else? So yeah, when we started, I mean, basically your race number, I mean, this is it here. I was race number 16. That was your UTMB index. So I was the 16th highest UTMB index out of the 515 runners or whatever it was doing it. So, but my main aim was to try and get into the top 10. Because now it's been taken over by UTMB, you've got really high caliber of runners, some of them, and so it's a very competitive and well-known race. So yeah, that was my race number 16. What else? So the pacing strategy, I learned a lot from Lakeland. I learned from Winter 55, just about the right shoes to wear, and because there's so much elevation and rock hopping, it was about, I was thinking protect my knees, protect my quads, hold back and just enjoy it. I mean, instead, it's not just about racing, it's about getting to know people, it's about sustainability so you can keep going and then reset at the aid stations and make use of the food that's there to eat proper food and not just gels and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, after 25 miles of daylight, it was obviously starting to get dark, and so I made a really good start, and then basically, and after 20 miles I swapped these fluids with the crew, which saved a bit of time at the aid station. And then basically another thing that really helped was meeting someone else who was at that same pace and just running together through the night. Now, I can't emphasize how much extra motivation and how it helped to get through that race. I met a guy called, I think it's Dan Maloney, and he was such a nice guy. He's such a cool guy. I mean, he's basically about the same pace as I was, and we were running together through the night, especially through the really technical sections, and even just alternating, going front and then behind, and we're just chatting. And it was nice to be with someone who wasn't racing against, didn't feel like he's racing against me, and if he needed to stop to do his shoes or whatever, or I needed to do the same, we'd do that, and we'd wait for the other person, and we'd help with navigation and all this sort of stuff. And when you're going 14 hours through the night through really technical terrain, any little help like that it made a massive difference, really. And that's probably one of the reasons that kind of kept me going right the way through the night, through those really tough sections. So yeah, what else? Through the night, work as a team. Yeah, Dan Maloney, who's an absolute star. So the section before Pendine Lighthouse to St Ives, which is really notoriously technical, the aid station before, we waited there probably for about 10 minutes or something, grabbed food and had a proper reset, because we knew what was coming. I mean, the pace through that section, some of it was like 20-minute miles sort of pace. It was that technical. You're just literally hiking, you're climbing over rocks and all sorts of stuff, and you needed the grip in the shoes, and there was lots of water everywhere, and it's really epic. So there's lots of steep ascents and descents. Yeah, and also I need that section especially. I needed to lace my shoes up pretty tight to avoid sort of sliding and bashing the front of the shoe, because when you're really, really tired, you can stub your foot and you get black toenails and all that sort of stuff. So you needed to have a good lockdown with those shoes, and sometimes that requires tightening up your shoes a bit, especially in the early sections when you've got waterproof socks, because there's a lot more sort of cushioning from the waterproof socks, and so you need to cinch it in tighter to get a good lockdown, but without cutting off the blood supply. So yeah, nutrition was the usual. 1 glass water, second was electrolytes and the precision fuel and hydration. Third, I actually carried a third 500ml flask at the front there, which I actually ended up by filling up with Coca-Cola and stuff, especially going through the night when you needed the caffeine. Coke really, really helped, but one of the aid stations, it was a bit too fizzy and the thing almost bloody exploded, but it was useful it helped get through the night with the caffeine and the extra sugar. Yeah, what else? So there's the gels, usual 30-gram gels, the caffeine gels. There was chews, mini flapjacks, and then real food. I mean, over that duration of time, I mean, as in an idea of how long it went on for, it was my race was 22 hours 45 a moving time. So it's a long time on your feet, and you're tired, you're knackered by the end of it, but you need real food. So yeah, my aim was top 10, 515 runners. So I was put into 50 to 54 age category, which I was quite surprised about, because this is my 50th year, but I'm not actually 50 yet, 'cause that's in October. But for some reason they put me in that age category. Weather was good at the start, it was wet underfoot. There's some areas where you're literally running through bog, and so your feet are going to get absolutely soaked. But it helped with the waterproof socks, bar the sort of extra sweating, and couldn't breathe as much. But I changed that after the drop bag and put normal Injinji ultra liner crew socks. So there was intermittent rain through the night for the 14 hours of darkness. Some of it was there's a couple of downpours, which when you slow down, you get cold. You can get a bit worrying that you're not going to be able to heat up again, and especially if you can't get the intensity up to get the warmth going again. But we managed to get through that stage, and luckily it was only a short downpour. Yeah, what else? Basically we went at moderate pace. It wasn't too much, but we let the first sort of 15 or so runners just go way ahead, because they were going faster than the original course record pace by Mark Derbyshire. And my strategy was basically enjoy it, take it easy, use the aid stations, but be sustainable, so you can just keep going, because the last thing I wanted to do is DNF. I'd rather lose a few positions but complete it and finish with some sort of energy than go out too hard, especially after Lakeland. So yeah, it's about 15 ahead, and then as we went through the really technical section, through Zenith to St Ives, we started reeling a few people in who'd overtaken us previous. Like, they had various problems. Like, one had totally trashed his legs, and he was literally he said he was just going to walk it in, which would have been ridiculous. And then another guy, I think his IT band went or something. And these are classic example of people who've gone out too hard over the technical sections and just trashed their legs for one reason or the other. Got lost a couple of times, but it's not too bad. And they're only short sort of diversions and then back again. So that wasn't too bad. And all the training with the navigation previous in training really, really helped. And also having the extra person through the night made a huge difference. So we must have been together for about 70 miles of the 102 miles. My watch ended up by resetting twice, and I lost about 3 miles on the overall distance, because the maps just suddenly, the whole thing just turned itself off and back on again. Luckily it brought back the activity, but it took a while to then clock back onto the actual route and stuff, which lost me about 3 miles on my Strava and stuff. But hey, at least it kept it. And yeah, through that section we managed to start reeling people in a little bit. So we must have got up to about position 10, and then going into daylight, I think we went through towards the end, and after reeling a few more people in, we eventually got into the top 10. So, and then with about 3 miles from the end, it was we had they call it the bitches, which is these sort of massive descents and then these big long sort of valleys where you come back up all these steps to get back up to the next cliffs and stuff. Now they are really tough, and you forget how many there are, and there's a few right at the end, and which can be absolute killers. But by that stage, you're so close to the end that you're pretty much home and dry after St Ives. So that's an interesting part of it. And then someone had actually moved the course markings in the wrong direction with about a mile to go. So we were sort of debating, me and Dan, whether or not we go that way or we go the other way as per the GPX. And eventually we saw someone else trying to catch up with us, but he was really kind and pointed in the right direction. So from then on, it's like, right, we're not losing one more position. We're in the top 10 and we want to keep our position. We don't want any more people sort of overtaking us. So we sort of emptied the tank right to the end. And it was an amazing race, really, really technical. Really well organised by UTMB. So the final result, I came 8th out of 515. I was first in my age category by 5 hours 45 minutes. So nice, safe sort of buffer there. Let's try and do it without knocking over. Here's the black buckle. So that shows you've done it in sub 24 hours. So my time was like 22 hours 45, and it was a really, really good race. I could have probably raced it harder, but whether or not I would have been able to finish that strong, I don't know. The leading lady overtook us at like mile 90 or something. So she was looking really strong. But yeah, I was really happy to make top 10, and it's a great race to have on your books. And it's like 100 mile UTMB. It's one of their majors. They've only sort of just taken it over. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope there's some useful information there. I would definitely advise it, but it's getting quite expensive now with UTMB, which I don't think it should be at that price. I think it's like 270 quid or something, but it's not cheap, but it's a beautiful part of the world, and if the weather plays ball, you can make a huge difference depending on the weather, because you're so exposed. But yeah, thanks for listening. I know it's gone on, but I've been wanting to do this one for a while, and on to the next big challenge. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.